Oh my goodness. I'm about ready for bed, but I wanted to make this video just really quickly because I wanted to go over the video that Candace Owens did tonight. And she typically does videos for her YouTube channel, her content, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Sometimes she does videos on Friday, but it's pretty rare. Now, you guys know that I've talked about this before in some of the deep dives that I've done about Candace Owens, specifically in the last 2 months, because I was following her investigations, the open-ended investigation into Jeffrey Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, who she spoke to, and she was trying to get him to confess to her whose toes did he step on, what Jewish person, what big millionaire from Israel or Zionist, toes did he step on. And he's like, well, I don't know, because there is nobody, with how wealthy and how much power he had. So that investigation really kind of went not anywhere. It's open-ended, like I said. Jeffrey Epstein, her investigation into him is open-ended, just a bunch of information that's already been given already to the public. Basically just piggyback riding off of what the federal government has already done. And that's the thing with Candace Owens, is she's really big on all law enforcement, especially the CIA, the federal government, the feds. They are corrupt, they're lying. Now, I think that's just disingenuous and dishonest to say that every single federal agent or law enforcement officer is dishonest. And I think that that is also not in line with Republican views, conservative views, because typically they support Blue Lives Matter. But Candace Owens hasn't been a Republican her whole life. In fact, the majority of her life, she was a Democrat, a liberal. And I don't know if you guys know who Laura Loomer is, but she exposed on X not a long back that she's known Candace Owens. She even posted a picture of her and Candace Owens together a few years back, and how Candace Owens came to her asking her for advice on how she can revamp her image as a conservative African-American woman. And I started thinking, okay, this is weird. But it was her behavior after Charlie Kirk was assassinated that really made me pull back, because I was into her investigation into Brigitte Macron, who was allegedly really born Jean-Michel Trogneau. And if you don't know, the president of France, his name is Emmanuel Macron, and he is married to the First Lady of France. You're talking about a president of the Republic of France today. And he's almost done with his second terms. I think their terms are 5 years. So he's in his second term and he's almost done. Right? But his wife, Brigitte Macron, is allegedly transgender. Now, I was into this investigation because there's a book. I own the book. I have read the book 3 different times. This is not Candace Owens' investigation, although she staked her entire career and professional reputation on this investigation. This investigation was actually brought by a man named Xavier Poussard. That's why at the end of her investigation into Brigitte Macron, she sits down with Xavier Poussard. Xavier Poussard is a French man who is currently living in Spain, I believe, because for 9 years, he did an investigation. He even fought the French government because after 50 years, class photos and all of those things are supposed to be kind of like our Freedom of Information Act request, kind of like a sunshine law, where you're allowed to get those things. And they were not giving him the pictures that he requested of Jean-Michel Trogneau when he was young in school. I mean, he eventually won, but it took him years of fighting the government to be able to get those. But all of his evidence proves pretty conclusively. So Candace Owens, what she did was she used her mainstream audience here on YouTube, her show, to be able to launch Xavier Poussard's investigation globally, worldwide, to an English-speaking audience, because he doesn't speak English very well. So I was very much into the book, and I've read the book 3 times. And I said, wow, Xavier Poussard really has, but she took his investigation and she brought the book into an English, because he doesn't speak English very well. And she brought his investigation to an English-speaking mainstream audience. Because a lot of people don't realize today that somebody that has 5.5, 6 million followers on YouTube, they are mainstream now. Because there's a lot more people that are watching people like Candace Owens on YouTube, her content, than there are looking at the New York Post or even the Daily Mail and their websites, let alone are people buying obscure magazines and newspapers anymore when they can just Google something for free. So I, of course, read the book 3 different times, and there is Xavier Poussard. He's onto something there, and I don't think that there's a problem with Jean-Michel Trogneau being Brigitte Macron, but the fact is his little sister is Brigitte Macron. So you're talking about identity theft. Whether or not Brigitte Macron allowed him to do it and is okay with him doing it and was paid off to do it and is in hiding somewhere or has passed away, either which way, that's illegal in the Republic of France. Not only that, but she and Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, met when he was 14 and she was allegedly 39. He was a student, she was a teacher. And it got so bad that Emmanuel's parents had to pull him out of school to get him away from this teacher of his. So you're talking about true, really true grooming and pedophilia. But they allegedly married in 2007. And if it is true that Brigitte Macron is really Jean-Michel Trogneau, who has been assuming the identity of his younger sister and transitioned at some point, then they couldn't have legally married in 2007 because that wasn't legal in the Republic of France, I think, until 2013. So that means that their marriage couldn't have happened until after that legally. That could be a reason why maybe Jean-Michel Trogneau was assuming the identity of his younger sister, Brigitte, because it's a real female, somebody that really has birth certificate and all of that, but he also would have had to assume her life, things that happened in her life, things that were linked back to her life, such as a marriage, children, etc., while trying to wipe his own. So it's strange to say the least, but she has also sat down with Tucker Carlson, and she has said she doesn't want the lawsuit to be dropped. Allegedly, they're suing her for, what, $400 million? Something along those lines. And she says, they're not suing me for the basis of what my claims are, that she's really a born man. And it's not even about being a transgender. It's about the president of a nation lying to their constituents. And therefore, every single nation that is an ally with France, that's a problem. Lying to people is a problem. People should be able to trust not only their government, but should be able to trust the people that are running it, especially the head of it. And when you find corruption at the highest level, then you can't trust that anything is not corrupt within that government. And the people of France, the people of the Republic of France deserve better. But she says she doesn't want it dismissed, but yet she quietly had her lawyers try to dismiss it on several different things. That France can't control free speech, that a foreign entity can't have control over an American person in free speech. And she was also trying to claim improper venue because they did the entirety of the lawsuit filed in Delaware, which is where Candace Owens has her LLC for her show. And she oftentimes says that her husband is her boss. So her husband is definitely helping her to script these shows. And it's also been found out that she's not actually doing these live. She's doing them. She's pre-producing these episodes, and then she publishes them to go live, but she is not actually live. In fact, some of her episodes, the last one and the one before, she had mentioned, oh, we're going to get to some of the comments. One of them she slipped and said, we're going to get to some of the comments from Friday, meaning the episode before. So a lot of people said, well, she's doing that to make more live gifts from super chats, super stickers, etc., which is what it is. But she's just constantly feeding little itty bitty bits of information regarding, like, she knows the truth. She's going to find the truth about Charlie Kirk. And I'm telling you, when I started to see it, and I backed off. And I said, there's something weird going on here. Because in the first 5 videos, a user over on X had exposed with how many views, how many live gifts, how many comments, how many views and gifts and everything on the replay that she got. She was estimated at $1.8 million. You're not even talking about merchandise, how many people then went to her website, how many people got a membership for her website, all of that, joined her book club, how many book sales she might have gotten from that. But $1.8 million just off of her first 5 videos about the Charlie Kirk investigation. Now, this is my whole problem, and I've said this from the beginning. She can't at the very end be like, oh, guess what? Tyler James Robinson is the one that did it, because then she's just piggyback riding off of the dirty, lying, corrupt federal agents. And the federal agents aren't the one that brought this investigation. They only helped Utah law enforcement to bring this investigation, because they're the ones who brought the indictment and the charges against Tyler James Robinson. I have all 10 pages. I have showed it multiple times throughout my videos, deep diving this. I even have the entirety of the letter from Charlie Kirk to Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, where he is just endlessly offering his help, his suggestions, and how to help Israel garner more, not just national, but global support, American support. And Candace has made some pretty bold claims, but she does that all the time. She's made some really weird connections to things that have nothing to do with the investigation into Charlie Kirk. They found the person who did it. But see, this is the thing. If you look back at a lot of assassinations, look at President Garfield, look at Abraham Lincoln, look at JFK, Martin Luther King Jr., okay? My mother has... gotta love her. She's 73. She's lived to see quite a few of these. And we were actually talking about this because when Martin Luther King Jr. Was assassinated, she was actually in Memphis, because my grandmother's only sister and her children all live in Memphis or are from the Memphis area. So it was not uncommon for my mom and my aunts and uncles, my grandparents, to go down to Memphis all the time, especially during the summer. And when you think about the people that perpetrate these kinds of horrible crimes against somebody, a lot of times they are radicals, or they're very political, but like on the opposite end of somebody. And so when I say this with just trying to step outside of my own political beliefs, my own religious beliefs. But what Charlie Kirk did for many, many years was he made content on the internet, specifically YouTube. Pretty much nobody didn't know who Charlie Kirk was, because we've seen his debates. We've seen little clips, little shorts here and there all over the internet. And it doesn't matter. But he did this whole thing with, and I didn't even know he had a whole entire nonprofit behind him. But that was the basis of his content, was going to these college campuses, prove me wrong across the banner, and debating these young college kids while telling them that college is a scam, right? So when you think of it from another perspective, like, you don't have to be a Democrat or a liberal to try to understand from that perspective how some people could come to not only hate, but have this kind of rhetoric towards Charlie Kirk, where they feel he is spreading hate, and that doesn't take necessarily being radicalized. When we look at a lot of gun violence, you'd say, oh, you have to be sick in the mind to be able to do something like that. But it's less than 25% of all of these types of mass violence incidents does the perpetrator have a truly mental illness or mental disability. People can very much be aware of what they're doing and plot and plan things out. And it's kind of hard to rationalize in your own mind how somebody could do something so evil, knowingly do something so evil, but it happens every day in America. It's crazy that we have 340 million American citizens, and yet we have close to 500 million armed, just guns, just armed weapons. That's insane. That's enough for every single one of America's citizens to have one, plus half of us to have a second one. Like, that's how many there are. So access isn't really necessarily an issue. But looking at it from somebody else's perspective, a young 22-year-old, say their politics and their religion doesn't align with Charlie Kirk's, and they feel that Charlie Kirk was spreading so much hatred. There's a lot of those. There's lots of college campuses that Charlie Kirk has visited in the last, 13 years. He started Turning Point at 19, and he was nearly 32, so you're looking at almost 13 years. So it's not that hard to fathom that some of these young adults might look at Charlie Kirk and think that he's spreading hate, that he's coming to your campus that they might feel that way. This is what I'm saying. You got to look at it from a different perspective. They might feel that he's being condescending by saying, prove me wrong. And yet nobody can prove him wrong. They might feel like his tone is not very warm or welcoming, that he's not educating with kindness, that he's being condescending. They might feel like him coming to their turf, to their campus, and doing those things, especially at nearly 32 years old, and making content, embarrassing these young adults in college because they can't prove him wrong. And he's videotaping it, and he's using that video that he is recording for content. He's putting it on all of his social media platforms. He's putting it on his YouTube, and all of these video clips are going viral, and they're there forever. And it's very embarrassing for these young adults to not only try to debate Charlie Kirk, but then to be proven wrong and to not be able to fully have that conversation with him. So from that standpoint, I just try to stand outside of myself, outside of my own perspective, outside of my own belief system and my own political affiliations and alignments, my own values and morals, and try to understand how somebody could become so radicalized to commit the act of violence against Charlie Kirk. And that is what I think is most important in trying to understand how this happened, because this kind of thing is not uncommon. These types of things happen every single day in America. We can have anywhere from 1 to 9 gun violence incidences in America every single day. Every single day. A lot of them are just not, the victim's not always somebody that's famous or very well known to the internet. But it took one person, it only took one shot, and that's all it took to end somebody's life, to end Charlie Kirk's life. So it's not like there was 20 shots that rang out and everybody's confused and, we can gather that there's more than one person. See, the thing is with the feds, if this was the federal government, first of all, federal government and somebody that's trained wouldn't have had to be 160 yards away. They could have done it from further away, and they wouldn't have done it from a rooftop. They probably would have done it in a vehicle before even approaching a place like that. And anybody in the federal government, had they been involved, wouldn't have been caught on CCTV footage, wouldn't have been caught on, parking garage footage. They wouldn't have been caught on Ring doorbell footage across multiple houses walking down the street. They wouldn't have been caught. They probably wouldn't have even been seen if this was a professional. That's like the sloppiest professional I've ever seen, in my humble opinion. So I don't think that this is this big conspiracy. Sure, there's corruption. There's corruption everywhere. There's corruption in content creators that pretend to be Republican, conservative content creators. And they are the ones that talk obsessively over psychological manipulation and psychological tactics. Yet they're the ones that are telling you to read books about Sigmund Freud and constantly reading about psychological manipulation tactics. I don't find that to be coincidental at all, that obsession with it. I think Candace Owens is truly just using this topic for content because it's a big, hot topic. But mark my words, I believe at the end of this, everybody is going to be proven the fact that Kash Patel, who was friends with Charlie Kirk before he even became the FBI director, that he offered his services to Utah law enforcement, who brought the charges, filed the indictment, caught Tyler James Robinson. I believe to insinuate that they're behind it or that they're corrupt. Of course, maybe they are corrupt, but I think in this case, no. I don't think they would be that ignorant with a case that's this big or somebody that was this famous to do that, because I think if the feds really had a role to play in this, you wouldn't have seen it, you wouldn't have known it, you wouldn't have heard it. Anyway, so here it is. Mark my words. I am not Jewish. I'm not a Zionist. I'm not from Israel. I'm not a stand for Israel. I am just somebody who simply saw myself the bullshit that she's saying in her videos and the reason behind it. Because yes, making millions of dollars off of 43 videos in 2 months is a very big motive and incentive to keep this up. And constantly, the things I know, I'm going to talk tomorrow a little bit, and it's bombshell. Like, those kinds of tactics draw you in to keep coming back. Trust me, I know, because I was one of the people that was constantly coming back to watch her content. It's getting to be ridiculous, though. Give us the person who really did it then. Because if you say you're going to solve the murder of your friend Charlie Kirk, you better not come up with the same person that the dirty, lying federal agents came up with, the dirty, lying, corrupt Utah law enforcement came up with, because then that's just piggyback riding off of their investigation. That's all it's doing. And how does she conclude an Egyptian military plane is really Israel? I want to know how she even concluded that. But there's a part of this video I want to talk about.
David, the movie. I will not be
mistakes. The way that this works is they want to make you feel insecure. They want to make you feel dumb, stupid, and ugly for thinking. And you have to find within yourself the confidence to keep going, right? Because you are watching how they tried to, it was so sinister, the way they have been attacking me from the second that Charlie got shot, and trying to make us think that we're crazy for recognizing that everything is wrong about this day. That's a psychological campaign. That is what the war is nowadays. And I want to just encourage all the YouTubers and all the mommy sleuths. This is Project Mommy Sleuth, really, to keep going, to keep sending us emails. And we are going to solve this thing. The Decentralized Intelligence Agency is going to solve this thing. And like I said, when I tell you what I know tomorrow.
Right there.
It's just, we're getting somewhere.
Come back tomorrow. Got to get the views tomorrow. Come back tomorrow.
Okay, what else do we have? We have a comment from the Paleo Rides. Right, hi Candace, I know you are on the right track. I've been watching daily and I was active on X, well, until I called out Israeli propaganda, and then I was permanently suspended. I had to drive from Arizona to X headquarters in Texas to ask for a review, and finally won my freedom 2 weeks ago. They are bigly mad. Yeah. They are definitively running an operation on X. It's obviously military bots. Like I said, they boast. If I make one mistake, it's like a trending topic for 3 days. And then when I drop truth, they're like, she's never dropped one fact. I'm like, we have so many times. It's like crazy to say that we have not dropped any facts. It's like
you're so one with her.
Insane to try to suggest that we have not dropped facts when we have been the ones breaking virtually every story on this. And of course,
what story has she broken on this?
The same thing. Ricardo Piquena writes, because I know we are completely and unconditionally loved and everything will be okay, it sucks that we are losing real human beings to their games. Keep searching for truth. Yeah, we're stumbling upon it. U.S. flagpole guy writes, Mommy Max for the wrong side of the tracks, doing David stuff with her truth acts with class. You got me rapping out here? Thank you for that donation. Friendly Fairy writes, we all need a friend like you, sending love from Australia. Thank you for saying that. Natalie writes, Candace, my heart is beating so fast. This is insane. Your strength is so inspiring, and we have your back. Let's effing go. I know you guys have my back, and I also know that Charlie has my back, because Charlie always had my back, and I always had his. And like I said, he knew that I'd be the one to defend him, and I would stand up to all of these clowns and all of these people who pretend to be pastors and pretend to be biblical and pretend that they're doing this out of like some moral authority. You are the worst human beings in the entire world. Seriously, to hide behind a Bible, like that makes me angrier than anything else for some reason. Like, to pretend that somebody pursuing truth when their friend is assassinated is some kind of an immorality or a quote-unquote evil makes me sick. It literally makes me sick.
That right there is what I cannot stand, because that is somebody who's not even, they don't even care about their audience anymore. They don't even care. That almost 6 million people means shit to them. But ad revenue, the more millions you get, the more you're actually getting paid. You're not talking about maybe $1,000 or $1,500 a month. You're now talking millions. And the bigger topic you have, the more views you're getting, the more live gifts you're getting. And she's not even live. These are pre-recorded videos that are already pre-edited, and they're uploaded onto YouTube, and they're published live at 5:30 or 5 o'clock. And then they go live as if they're live. She's sitting there with the laptop as if she's live. She's reading comments and other things from the previous episode because she slipped up before and has said that. But as much as I have liked Candace Owens and I have prayed for her, I have realized that she is just a downright narcissist, and she used psychological manipulation tactics very much like Sigmund Freud had studied and had used, very much like what the CIA has used. Now I understand her obsession with it, because she is using those tactics on you guys. And if you're watching her, do whatever you want, but just realize that when she uses that language, especially hiding behind religion and the Bible, yet she's sitting there constantly picking certain comments to read about. Candace, I know that God's with you. I know that you're doing the right thing. That makes you feel like if you don't agree with it, you're the outsider. That if you don't agree with it, you're not religious. Now remember, this is somebody who was just recently converted to Catholicism. So being somebody that's been religious the whole 40 years that I've been on earth, nobody's going to sit here and try to use religion to hide behind or use religion as a shield for their bad narcissistic behavior, because I started seeing it. And the way she says me, I constantly all the time. And then very select language with, they know we're telling the truth, making you feel like you're included with her in what she's doing. And anybody that's not in agreement with her is evil, is a demon, is downright sinister, and is, literally straight from hell. And God is not going to protect that, because it's the truth. The truth doesn't have to fight hard to manipulate you. The truth doesn't have to fight to make you feel included. And it doesn't matter. I'd burn the whole house down. I'll burn it all down. Doesn't matter. But it says a lot about your character and who you really are, that you are using the topic of Charlie Kirk's assassination to run over 43 different episodes of these videos, and they're open-ended. There's no conclusion. Why is there no conclusion? Because Utah law enforcement, with the help of the FBI, have caught Tyler James Robinson, and they're going to be seeking the death penalty. She's even said, he didn't confess in the indictment. He did 3 different times. And of course, his mother, his father, the family friend, and the family friend that's also a retired sheriff's deputy. I'm sure those are all going to be people that are going to be subpoenaed. They're going to be witnesses. They're going to be put under oath on the stand at this trial, unless by some miracle he's given some kind of plea deal, and he takes it for life in prison with a full confession and accepting responsibility for what he did. But the day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, we all watched it. We all watched what happened, right? It only took one time, one bullet, one trigger pull, and that's it. Yeah, it's chaos. Anybody that's ever seen an assassination, like my mother has said, that people don't know what to do or how to respond. Candace has literally picked every single thing, like, the guy that's talking to the bush, the crazy guy that stood up and said, do me instead of anybody else, because I'm an old guy. And turns out he's crazy, and he had this history of child pornography charges. I don't know, maybe that's why he's hanging out at a campus, because he likes young people. I don't know, but I don't think that has anything, like, she hasn't been able to prove how does that tie to the actual act of ending Charlie Kirk's life. It makes no sense to me. I think you guys are being psychologically manipulated by these Republican or conservative influencers, and it's no coincidence to me that her and Megyn Kelly and Tucker Carlson are constantly in this, what I call a human centipede. It's a circle jerk. Everybody's jerking each other off. That they're all in a circle, kumbaya, jerking each other off, constantly talking about each other in nice terms or using each other's content. Like Megyn Kelly just shows a clip about, trying to back up what Tucker Carlson said about, we had this conversation with Charlie before, and he told me that not to stifle my free speech and to just go max. And then Megyn Kelly says, I was looking through footage and I found this. And then he's literally saying, go pro max. That's what I heard. And I played it back and back and back. I'm like, it sounds like he's literally talking about go pro max, like with this model, like this model iPhone, I would go with the Pro Max. I don't hear him say Go, Max. Go all the way. Go all in on Israel. It's like they're all painting Charlie Kirk to be whatever way they want him to be. But they're all the people that are benefiting, making millions of dollars off of his assassination, talking about him. And also defaming the federal government, defaming law enforcement officers. Candace Owens was also told from day one to look into the sheriff. Oh, because he stole the election. All these people kept telling her he stole the election, and there's something weird about that sheriff, the one that was at all the press conferences regarding finding Tyler James Robinson. Yet she wouldn't look into him. Why? Because that would be direct defamation to actually look into him. Of course, she's going to say petty stuff about Cash Patel, petty stuff about this person, that person, this pastor, Turning Point USA. And I noticed something with Candace Owens too. She likes to provoke people on X and then try to force them into a statement, or having to rebut something, or having to either, make a statement, or having to deny one of her claims outright. And then she turns around and uses that as content to be like, see, they're acting weird. See, they're acting weird. We call that a shit starter. We call that an instigator. We call that somebody who likes to stir the pot, stand back, and watch it boil. They're the type of people that like to create their own content. And still, please tell me how this whole thing with the airplane, an Egyptian military plane, how does that prove Israel behind the Egyptian military plane? How did she make that jump? And there's absolutely no proof in there whatsoever. And then she's like, leading you back to come back tomorrow. She's been doing that since September 11th of 2025. And that's how she gets the views. And it's all based off of dishonesty, because it's not being transparent and honest with your audience. It's propaganda. It's straight up propaganda. Candace Owens is not a law enforcement official. She's not an FBI agent. She's not with the CIA or the government. And she certainly didn't bring justice to the person who actually committed the horrible act against Charlie Kirk. And when you stop and you think about it, it's not like there was 20, different positions and, triggers being pulled all at the same time. It was only one pull of the trigger, and that's it. That's all it took. But if this was really a sniper or a federal agent, or if this was, say, Israel military, somebody in the IDF or whatever, do you really think that they would be stupid enough to be caught on CCTV footage? Or that they would have done it in front of so many people? Or that they wouldn't have already done recon for where those cameras were and blacked those cameras out? You don't think that they, I think a government conspiracy or government involvement, no matter if it's American government or a foreign government or military, if they were involved, you wouldn't have all those things, because they would have done recon on all of that, and they would have made sure that none of those things were able to capture. You see what I'm saying? So it just reads too sloppy. I definitely believe that this was a 22-year-old kid who just didn't like Charlie Kirk, because that's the most probable and the most logical as far as this goes, and that's in alignment with who they found and what they found. And we're going to learn more as the trial comes out. Now, do I believe that there's corruption? Of course there's corruption. But I just don't believe that it's in this case. I believe you're psychologically manipulated by Candace Owens. She's playing on your paranoia and your fear and making you feel like she's holier than thou and she's speaking truth. She's the only one that has the truth. That if you're not with her, then you're evil and you're a demon. And that's not true. I'm not a Zionist. I'm not Jewish. I'm not from Israel. I'm not a stan for Israel. But I just know her bullshit when I see it. And I can clearly see that she's doing this for her own financial gain. I don't know if her husband even has a salary. I know he's supposedly worth over $250 million or million UK pounds, because his father is wealthy. I don't know if that money is actually liquidated money that he has in his bank account, or if that's just what he's set to inherit, or what. I know that Candace Owens seems to be working pretty damn hard for somebody who is married to somebody so wealthy. And why? Why is that? I mean, you would think making a projected over $6 million off of the last 43 videos would be enough. right? I definitely think that her and her husband, in my own opinion, it seems like their videos are scripted, that they go over this and they make everybody feel like they're involved in this investigation, but they're all open-ended and there's no conclusion because there's nothing to conclude. And that's what I don't like. I don't like the psychological manipulation of her audience and the not caring of her real audience. Because to me, that is evil. That is anti-God. You are not caring about the people that put you where you're at, that are giving you the opportunity to make the money that you do and to have the show and the platform that you have. We know she got it from just being condescending. But, you know, at some point, people are going to start seeing that and being like, that's a little too much. You're literally making Charlie Kirk's death about you, about your feelings about it, while trying to manipulate people into believing that you're the only person that can bring justice. You're the only person that has truth. You're the only person that knew him that well. That we can't trust the federal government at all. That we can't. No, absolutely not. It has to be her because she's the only person loyal to him. Really? I have a hard time believing that. I really do.
In one regard, they knew that the first thing they had to do was, when I was in my grief stage, was to try to pretend Charlie and I didn't even have a relationship, because they knew that I would be the one. They knew I was the anomaly. They knew I had already said F the money. They knew I had already said F the reputation. I don't care about the headlines. And because they tried to incentivize me with all of these things before. They knew that I would be the one to burn it to the ground and see what came from the ashes, rather than to side with a lie.
I'm going to tell you something extraordinary, Candace Owens. We are all built different. And you're not the end-all be-all of truth-telling. You're not the end-all be-all of investigating and researching. In fact, you rely on 99% of your tip box doing the work for you. So, that whole thing with, I'm the one that doesn't care about the reputation, I don't care about the money. Then why are you doing all of these shows on YouTube then? Because it's not truly for justice. You didn't find the killer. Utah law enforcement did that. They're the ones who found Tyler James Robinson. And mark my words, at the end of this, that kid is either going to confess and take a plea deal, or it's going to come out at trial what really happened. And it's not going to be because Candace Owens helped find the murderer of her friend, Charlie Kirk. So, does she even get nervous about thinking about how she's going to end this investigation, or what she's going to say to even explain to people? It's going to be more gaslighting and more manipulating. Watch. Can guarantee it. I don't know what you all think about this, but once my eyes opened, they opened, and this is too much. Too much. Trying to get into your brain, trying to get into your heart, trying to get you through religion, through God. Like, God is always with me. I don't have to be Jewish. I don't have to be a Zionist. I don't have to be a stan and a lover of Israel to know that Candace Owens is full of bullshit, and she is using her friend's death for her own financial gain. And she has a pretty big damn motive to do that. Like millions of dollars worth of motive to use Charlie Kirk's name in assassination. It happened. Gun violence happens every day in America. Sometimes more than 9 times a day in America it happens. So it doesn't make any sense for Israel, a Zionist, Jewish Americans, the Israeli military to even come after Charlie Kirk at all. It would be more likely that they would go after somebody like Candace Owens, and she seems to be perfectly fine. Or even Tucker Carlson. And that's another thing with the fake threats with, me and Tucker Carlson had to lay low. But you didn't, and you're fine. He didn't, and he's fine. It would make no sense. It would make no sense. I think the donors and all of that stuff with Turning Point USA is completely separate from his assassination. I think his assassination happened for the exact reasons why the person who killed him initially claimed in the indictment. That he just spread too much hate and he didn't like him. He had an opportunity and he took it. Simple as that. Look at President Garfield. Look at JFK. Look at Abraham Lincoln. Look at Martin Luther King Jr. All men who were assassinated by somebody with a mental illness or a mental disability or somebody that was just full of hate. Didn't align with their politics. Didn't like the fact that they're spreading hate according to their perspective. None of them were taken out by some, radical government of Israel, radical government of France, radical military of Saudi Arabia. It's just preposterous. There's so much actual corruption. How about focus on that? How about doing an investigation on real corruption? Do something that's actually going to shed a light to real Americans about real corruption so people can recognize that. The Charlie Kirk thing is just tiring. It's tiring. And the circle jerk is tiring. And everybody's tired of everybody having to, rebut this and refute that and make statements about this and make statements about that. And, the Egyptian military plane now is allegedly Israel. What did Israel do? Go and just rent out an Egyptian military plane and just what? Went to Utah for what? I have no idea. But I don't know how she made even that leap. Those connections are just not there. I'm starting to wonder if she's not using AI to make some of these dumb connections. But whatever, if you like Candace Owens, that's fine. I mean, I've liked her as a person and I've prayed for her, but I'm telling you, I have seen it. I recognize it. I know what she's doing. I know the game that she's playing is very sophisticated. It is very smart and it's very clever and it's very cunning. But once you are smart enough to realize and see and listen, you just can't go back from that. And I don't care if I have conservative views or liberal views. I don't care if I align with Candace Owens politically or not. The bullshit that she is doing, her actions, words, choices, and behaviors recently, go ahead and look and investigate whatever you want to, that's fine. But she's now telling pastors to sit down and demanding their silence. She's making a mockery of an organization that Charlie Kirk has worked so hard to create and to build for 13 years. She's now making a mockery of his wife and children. And I'm telling you, that whole investigation, those videos, it is not going to age well. It is not going to age well. And it's going to be something that his children are going to grow up in 15 years and are going to see that crap. And you know who's going to be behind bars for killing their dad? Tyler James Robinson is. And probably in 15 years' time, he's going to be fighting with appellate processes to try to lessen his sentence or to overturn, death penalty. But we haven't gone to trial yet. And I'm so glad the judge put a gag order in place because now Candace Owens can't keep trying to reach out to Tyler James Robinson's family, who are going to be witnesses, or Lance Twiggs, or, their family. And that's why she's focusing on other petty shit like an Egyptian military plane. Okay. Well, then you'd have to show every single military plane that was anywhere in the vicinity of Utah that day. Because you have to put it into context like that. But she's not doing that. She's just pulling shit out of her ass now. And if you follow Candace Owens and you like her, hey, good for you. That's all good. But I'm just saying, open your eyes, open your ears. You are being manipulated. That's all I'm saying. Because I was one of the people that were manipulated. And it was Charlie Kirk and his death that made me open my eyes. I couldn't unsee and unhear what I was seeing and hearing directly from Candace Owens. So you may be biased and you may like her. That's fine. I'm just saying, be careful because you are being played. You are nothing but a part of the number for her. The number that makes her money. All off the backs of her deceased friend and you. Not to mention she makes thousands and thousands of dollars in live gifts and she's not even live. That's the crazy thing. Anyway, have a great night. I love you all.